This episode is not suitable for anyone under the age of 18. Please proceed with caution.
I'm Nikki Druce.
And I'm Cheryl.
And this is Killers, Cults and Queens,
the podcast where we journey to the spookiest, scariest, and damn right weirdest corners of the world.
Today, we're dusting off our cloaks and dimming the lights as we're about to have a good old-fashioned séance to summon the infamous medium, Helen Duncan.
We want to be going and having fun with the dead.
And isn't that the coolest thing you've ever heard?
That's the most Nikki Druce thing I've ever heard in my life. A bit of scrambled eggs and a Grazia magazine.
Apparently makes the best ectoplasm out there.
If you're here, just tap the footing table.
Are you ready?
You have me at summoning. Let's do this.
Imagine being in a darkened room in wartime Britain. The threat of bombing raids and nightly stays in an air raid shelter, an everyday occurrence for millions across the UK. However, tonight is different. You're not hiding in the dark from German bombers. Instead, you're waiting for a medium to begin a séance. A séance so fabled that spirits fly through the air and the host vomits ectoplasm. Welcome to Killers, Cults and Queens. But before we dive into today's case, welcome along to the realm of the other, Cheryl. Are you ready to join hands around the table and summon the dead? Or more succinctly, how's your week been?
Well, I've got a real appetite for some ectoplasm right now.
Tasty. What do you think ectoplasm would taste like?
Not nice.
No?
Not nice at all. Well, we can ask Craig David, because what's your flavour? Tell me what's your flavour. Oh, I'm sure he'd know. But that was quite the introduction.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun with today's one. I think you're going to really get your teeth stuck into this.
Fabulous. Well, look, you had me at ectoplasm, and I'm hook, line and sinker. And you know I love the wartime. I'm like a housewife. I love make, do, and mending and all that shebang. I wish I had an Anderson shelter in my garden.
You're standing at the window, waiting patiently for your husband to return from war.
Exactly. But no, I think you've teed me up very nicely for a quite a bumpy ride, but an exciting ride at the same time.
So today's story delves into the spirit world, and I know we've spoken before about ghosts and our own experiences with them, but how do you feel about mediumship and professional dead communicators? Do you think they're entirely real? Do you think some of them are fraudsters? What's your take on it?
I mean, there's always fraudsters amongst us in this world. You can only take one look at my bank statement to see I'm a victim of fraud. No, that's my own doing, shopaholic shares. But no, I genuinely think you can never count something out because there is always truth to most things in life. So I would like to believe that there is communication with the life beyond us, but there are definitely some crooksters.
Yeah, and I think there's a very interesting line to tread in case of mediums and psychics, because I believe that there are spirit realms and things to tap into, and I think there's stuff there. And I think also doing this podcast has really helped open my eyes to a lot of things.
Yeah, me too.
And since we've been doing this show, I think I have started to believe more in that kind of thing than I ever have done before. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. It's probably because we talk about a lot of various different topics that all kind of lead into spooky, scary things, don't they? But
always.
I think there is the possibility, as you said, for fraud in these situations. But also I think people do genuinely have the gift, as I like to call it.
That's one way to look at it.
But shall we have a look at one of the classic mediums of her day and delve back into the world of the mysterious Helen Duncan?
Yes, please.
Well, it's time to cast our minds back to the time of rationing, make, do and mend, as you already said, digging for victory and remembering that loose lips sink ships. Try saying that 5 times fast after a vodka.
Loose lips sink ships. Loose lips...
Yep.
I have it. I'm bloody stone cold sober.
You've only been on the Red Bull. So let's see just how much of these sayings will ring true for the players in today's tale. So if you're ready, it's time to set the scene. It's a chilly March day in a busy and bustling courtroom at the legendary Old Bailey in London. As the jury gets settled and the judge shuffles his papers for the day, a trial is about to continue, which has been going on for weeks. In the dock stands a woman who is accused of something extraordinary for the time: witchcraft. As she sits calmly and quietly in the dock, she watches as almost 50 witnesses come to her defence over the course of the whole trial. The jury listens to the evidence, and the prosecution, who throw around wild claims of spirit summoning during séances, and yet the courtroom is split. Was this woman a witch, or was she just a very good showman? The real charge isn't so much to do with the flailing ghouls and the demonic voices, but more to do with something being revealed during a séance, and furthermore, their position in the war. Was this woman actually delivering the secrets of the dead, or were they in fact military secrets? Let's find out.
Sorry, that's just taken a big old turn. I was expecting, like, your Uncle Michael has been in touch. He sends you love. He says the cash is in the tin in the loft. Make sure you get it. But no, it's the bomb shelter is under attack in 3 days' time. Military secrets. Like, sorry?
Yep, she's really going, pardon the pun, but for the big guns.
Not this. Wow. Okay. Well, Miss Helen, you're quite the champ. You're quite the deliverance of the World War II right now, and I'm interested to see how we got to this point.
Okay, so to begin today's story, we first have to head back to a land where ghosts, and more importantly, the ability to communicate with them, was regarded as a new science. Spiritualism was a craze that had developed in the 1800s. It offered solace in the form of convening through a medium who would communicate your deceased loved one's wishes to you. And when the mortality rate was so depressingly high, people were desperate for a way to commune with their deceased loved ones. Mediums who were gifted at communicating with the dead would travel around the UK and visit different spiritualist churches and groups where they would perform séances to curious paying audiences. A lucrative living for good mediums who summoned spirits night after night to packed audiences. So what exactly was spiritualism per se? Well, there's no real definitive answer for how it started, but one particular medium who emerged during 1913 in Wisconsin in the US seemed to bring the belief into the mainstream, so much so that it threatened the church.
Well, of course, it's always the church.
Her name was Leafy Anderson, and she showed she was a gifted spiritualist medium. Spiritualism was never about scary summonings. It was always about keeping up a connection with your dear departed. And Leafy did this via her spirit guide known as Black Hawk, a deceased Native American who reached out to her. Leafy's seances started to gain notoriety for her gift to speak to the dead. And before long, people were ditching regular church to go and hang out at Leafy's seances.
It's the new hot spot, you know. Some people love the Sugar Hut. Some people love, I don't know, another establishment. I don't leave the house. But Leafy's Gaff sounds like the place to be, you know. Nobody wants to be going, oh, the preaching and speeching and stuff. We want to be going and having fun with the dead.
Yes, exactly. I would be there with bells on. As this movement began to grow, the regular church leaders started to feel threatened. And by the 1920s, spiritualist churches had started to pop up across the country, with a concentrated pocket of them being in New Orleans. Now, Leafy was a Black African American, and the majority of the original congregations and members were also Black African Americans. But by 1922, white people came along to ruin everything.
No, of course.
They took over the churches and expelled their Black and POC members. However, all this did was force the expelled members to set up new churches, and so the blatant racism didn't have the desired effect. And in fact, these new churches did even better than before.
Well, I'm glad they're thriving.
Yep, doing very, very well. So I love the fact that this entirely failed for them. But by the 1920s, spiritualism was already under scrutiny. It seemed there was a real split in who believed what. Some thought this new religion was legit, and others thought it was a load of bunkum.
Sorry, what?
Bunkum. You never heard of bunkum before?
No.
It's not the what other stuff you might think. It's bunkum.
A whole lot of hunkum bunkum.
Yeah. So during the 1920s, spiritualism had taken a beating from those set out to expose fraudsters and fakes. Celebrities such as Harry Houdini queued up to disprove their claims, sitting in séances and trying their best to see who was kicking the table or pulling ghosts around on strings.
If you're here, just tap the footing table.
In fact, even the spiritualists themselves weren't necessarily convinced. In February 1921, Thomas Lynn Bradford, a medium in Detroit, Michigan, set up the ultimate experiment to prove the existence of an afterlife by promising to return from the dead.
Sorry?
He's going to come back from the dead. That's his plan. He's going to prove that ghosts exist.
Surprise, bitch. Bet you didn't think you saw the last of me.
So Bradford was so convinced he would come back from the spirit world that he took his own life in the pursuit of science. He agreed with a fellow medium that he would return the next day in spirit form after his death to deem the experiment a success. Then they'd know once and for all that there was an afterlife. On the 6th of February 1921, Thomas blew the pilot light out on his gas heater, opened the valve up to full, and tucked himself into bed. Ruth Doran, the medium who was tasked with reaching Bradford after his suicide, waited 48 hours for him to make contact, but heard nothing and called the experiment a failure. After the fraud accusations of spiritualism in the early 1920s had swept across America, the British followed suit, and by the late 1920s, suspicion was definitely being cast upon those who professed to having the gift. And it seemed there was definitely a fine line to be trod of those who could reach the dead and those who may be doing this all for cash and not cosmic karma.
Hey, I'm all about cosmic karma, but the cashly would entice me more.
However, the skepticism of the public didn't seem to affect business for the mediums. If anything, it helped get more articles in newspapers and helped spread the word, with plenty of people still willing to pay to sit in the dark for even a hazy glimpse of a long-dead relative. Now, there had been one world war by this time, and Britain had been hit hard, with many men dying. And as you can imagine, people were struggling, and it's no doubt that spiritualism came along at the right time during these tragic circumstances to excel in the way it did. But by the time World War II had started, the secrecy around the war was amped up. If any details were to get out to the enemy, that could jeopardize the whole operation. So during this time, even when people had been killed, their families were often not told for a while, and this made spiritualism thrive. This new craze allowed one particularly gifted medium to rise up through the ranks, and before long, her séances were selling out on a regular basis. But was she legit or just shit?
I am stealing that. Is that legit or just shit? That is quite fabulous, Nikki. I'm gonna call shit.
You reckon so?
I don't wanna be a Freddy foreshadower, but I call bullshit.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Have I been a hypocrite this episode already?
Nah, you're all good. But as the story progresses, we'll find out.
Well, I do believe in fairies. I do. Before we dive into the chaos of this episode, I have to tell you what happened last night. I was playing my fave game, RuPaul's Drag Race Match Queen, you know, matching puzzles, unlocking wigs, living my best fantasy, when somebody booted my outfit I made, which I know for some of my earlier looks were a boot, but not right now. No, thank you very much. But I wasn't about to let that slide. I went back in, leveled up, added some more sparkle, and came back at a legendary level. Only seems fitting, and that's what I love about Match Queen. Queen. Every round is a chance to turn it around and make a comeback. Now, this game is free on iOS and Android, and it's fabulous and it's dangerously fun. So please tell me you're playing Match Queen, and if you're not Divas, well, fix that immediately. All right, now back to our regularly scheduled drama, though honestly, nothing is as dramatic as getting booted in that game.
So it's the start of World War II, and the British public have only just recovered from World War I. In fact, that may even be too strong. The country is still standing, and now it's time for round 2. The death toll was bad in World War I, but in World War II, things were going to escalate to a worrying high, with many households losing their whole male faction in just a few years.
Terrifying.
So, with sad wives, mothers, girlfriends, and sisters back at home, they desperately wanted to talk to their loved ones. Spiritualist mediums provided this service for those worried about the fate of their boys overseas, and so they helped to offer some clarity on what was going on for a fee. Now, this is World War II during the Blitz. There are blackouts most nights to avoid attracting German bombers who were looking to decimate some key areas across the UK. They were looking to bomb anywhere which would cause the most disruption. So, where do you think they were looking to annihilate, Shez?
London Underground, London Underground, going underground. Well, obviously everybody was underground in London, but the monuments, they want to get Bucky Powell, they want to get Housley Powell, they want to get London Bridge.
The London Eye.
They might be waiting a while to get the London Eye,
Yeah.
but yeah, they wanted to get those landmarks.
Anywhere else they might want to take as well.
Chelmsford High Street.
Do you know if Chelmsford High Street was heavily bombed?
I recall. I think people actually got evacuated to Chelmsford.
Oh, did they? Was that deemed a safer place?
Yeah, and Takeley. That's where my nan got evacuated to, and then ended up staying. But yeah, I can't think of anything. Manchester.
They were basically looking to upset the country's infrastructure. So they were thinking of places they could hit that would really cause damage. So anywhere that may have a munitions factory, because if they were to hit a munitions factory, then that's great because they are using the munitions of the country on their own people. So they want that to happen because they don't want them to be able to take those munitions and use them on them. Upsetting anything like ports as well was a plan because they wanted to stop any of the imports, exports, so any food coming in, any naval operations as well. So a lot of the naval operations left from the same sort of shipping ports as well.
Is that like Portsmouth and Southampton?
That's exactly where I'm talking about. So we're talking a lot of the big cities. So Manchester probably would have been one as well. So they're just planning to decimate and to cause as much disruption as possible.
Damn.
But where does spiritualism come into this? Well, for that, we have to meet our key player in today's story, Helen Duncan. Here she comes. Victoria Helen McRae McFarlane was born in Callander in Scotland in 1897, where she lived for most of her life. She was noted to be an exceptional child with an extraordinary gift. At school, she would disturb her fellow pupils and teachers by telling their fortunes and prophesying the future, much to the dismay of her mother, who was strictly religious and didn't much like her daughter's talents. She seemed incredibly tapped into the other side, even from a young age, and almost to a freakishly accurate point.
Damn.
At 18 years old, Helen met her soon-to-be husband, Henry, and when he approached, he said to her, "So we meet at last."
I thought you were going to say, "So we meet again." Wow.
They'd never had any contact before, but Henry said the two of them had been spiritually connected for years before then.
Wow. Oh, okay. It's starting. I can feel the juices inside me.
It's exciting, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
It's like a movie.
That would get me, to be fair. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, but that could take you one or two ways. Is it, "Oh, so we meet at last"? You'd be like, "Get the fire exit door, bye." Or it'd be like swooning.
Yeah, it might come across as creepy. if it was the wrong
Yeah.
person that said it to you. So Henry was an injured World War I soldier, but had switched to being a cabinet maker. The pair got married, had 6 children in total.
6?
Clearly, they didn't have TV back then. They were really in love and were each other's ride or dies for their whole lives. Isn't that so cute?
That's super sweet. And look,
Super sweet.
that's all people want in life, is just a love that will last. And the fact that they found that in each other at last meant that it was meant to be. So
Yeah.
just the 6 kids, crawl blimey.
Oof, yeah, that's a lot, isn't it? And you think how much that must cost you as well.
That's a lot of bread.
Doesn't bear thinking about. By day, Helen had a fairly unremarkable life working at the local bleach factory. But by night, she would use her childhood gift and perform fantastical séances, communing with spirits and allowing attendees to speak with their lost loved ones, becoming widely renowned for her abilities across Scotland. Helen's popularity grew in Scotland, and it wasn't long before tales of her rare talent started to spread across the UK. And people wanted to see Helen, or Hellish Nell, as she was also referred to, in action. A nickname she'd been given by her schoolmates due to her dark tendencies to be the prophesier of doom. And isn't that the coolest thing you've ever heard?
That's the most Nikki Druce thing I've ever heard in my life.
She's so metal. She's so metal. Hellish Nell!
I'm obsessed that became her stage name.
I know, fantastic, isn't it?
I mean, I'm just Cheryl. Imagine if I was Hellishezish.
Hellish. It doesn't roll off the tongue, I'm afraid.
No. I'll workshop that.
All right. During the war, Helen began to get a reputation for communing with deceased soldiers and revealing information that shouldn't have been for anyone's ears but the government. Helen had a hotline to dead troops, and they were all too happy to reveal military secrets. But was her mediumship something officials should have been worried about, or was the real threat her ability to extract information from the spirit world, which could have delivered a different ending to World War II? On the 3rd of September 1939, Neville Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of England, declared war against Germany, and what would become Britain's involvement in World War II began. Over the next 6 years, Britain lost over 300,000 servicemen and civilians, and the bereaved were desperate to reconnect with their loved ones. Many had also lost someone in World War I and sought some form of comfort in knowing that they were doing okay in the afterlife. Helen Duncan was not excluded from the skepticism of spiritualism during the 1920s, and she was investigated during 1928 at a séance in Edinburgh and accused of being a trickster, with her séances being deemed more ghastly than ghostly. But what could you expect at one of these séances? Well, Helen's séances would begin with her sinking into a deep trance-like state. She would speak through a spirit guide who would lead the séances. Now, in a first for Killers, Cults and Queens, we actually have some audio to play from a clip of one of Helen's séances.
Oh my goodness.
Would you like to hear it?
No.
Absolutely not.
No, of course I do. Look, I love the interactiveness of it all. So hit me with your best audio, Nikki Druce. Hit me hard and hit me quick.
Okay. Now, just to intro this clip, the loud voice you will hear first is Albert, Helen's regular spirit guide. And the softer voice is Helen's talking to a lady in the crowd.
Next person to come here, I want someone just like you, but further back towards the corner there, to ask a young lady out that passed towards her life. Now, I have a feeling that she's had an operation of some kind. Will you try her on?
Come on, there.
No, she doesn't move on your way.
No. Yeah, I know a young lady.
Yes. Do you know her name?
Young lady, it's the name of Kathleen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right. Will you call her out, please?
Well, come along, Kathleen.
Oh.
Have you any message for Charlie?
Yes.
Have you?
But I'm all right, but I'll make me happy.
You are? Oh, that's lovely, Kathleen. Absolutely. I didn't expect to see you, but it's just lovely. Is there anything else I can tell Billy?
That's all.
What do you think?
Why does she sound like she's like a New York gangster?
Do you think so?
I'm just talking like Liza. Maybe she sounds more like Liza.
I thought she was saying, "Come out, please." I thought she sounded very, very posh when she spoke.
Maybe it got missed in communication over to me because that definitely sounded like Liza Minnelli doing a séance. I said, "Mother, we're playing the Palace tonight."
But actually, I quite like the ones that are in the front row that are like, Kathy, can you call out Kath? I think it's Kathleen. Kathleen wants to come through.
Nikki Druce, you've got a future in voice acting. I'm telling you now.
I definitely do not. My accents are awful.
No, I thought that was dead good, Nikki Druce. I thought that was dead good. Did you see what I did
see
there?
what you
'Cause they're
did there.
dead.
Yeah, I see what you did there. So let's just break down a bit about what you're hearing here. So Helen would have had a few different guides she would use to commune through, but Albert was her regular voice and guide to the spirit world. She would also have some physical human helpers in the room, one of which can be heard on this recording. Albert would help to lead proceedings, guiding people through the seances, and would ask questions of the crowd in order to keep things going. Alongside Albert's spirit appearances during the seances, Helen would produce large amounts of ectoplasm, a supernatural substance which aids the manifestation of spirits from her mouth. Helen would also call visible spirits into the room, which could be seen floating around the ceiling, and she would regularly have ghosts appear in her lap or from under her black silk robes.
What were they doing up there?
Now, as there was a lot of uncertainty around spiritualism during this time, the Society for Psychical Research was set up in the pursuit of the truth to find out once and for all, were ghosts real? The society had been going since 1882, but when spiritualism rose to fame, that's when the real work started to happen, and the society was super keen to carry out genuine investigations, as after all, if they could prove the afterlife existed, that kind of changes everything on Earth, doesn't it?
A little bit.
Harry Price, one of the Society's researchers and someone we could do a whole episode on in and of itself, learned of Helen and her psychic abilities and decided she would make an excellent person to experiment with as her claims were bold as brass. Harry became interested in Helen in 1929 due to reports of spirit materializations in well-lit seances, which he thought might be trickery. His 1931 investigation at the National Laboratory of Psychical Research revealed Duncan's ectoplasm to be fraudulent.
No, you're joking.
Apparently, it consisted of substances like egg white mixed with chemicals, cheesecloth, paper soaked in egg white, rubber gloves, and magazine cutouts used to create the illusion of spirits.
That's quite the concoction, I'm not going to lie. A bit of scrambled eggs and a Grazia magazine.
Apparently makes the best ectoplasm out there.
Well, it's good to know because I was going to make ectoplasm for dinner tonight.
Fantastic. Well, now you've got the recipe.
Oh, fabulous.
One evening, Harry arrived with an X-ray machine as he had suspicions that Helen was consuming the ectoplasm and then regurgitating it from her stomach. When Henry said he wanted to perform the X-ray, Helen shot up and pushed her way past him and ran into the street.
That's suspicious.
This, of course, was highly suspicious. And weird. And Harry suspected it was a diversion to pass the fake ectoplasm to her husband, Henry Duncan, who then refused to empty his pockets to Price.
If you don't cough up the evidence, you're guilty.
It all stinks a little bit of deception, doesn't it?
And eggs.
Do you think there would have been a whiffy waff in the room?
1000%. You can't mistake the stench of an egg.
Well, people say that ghosts smell like sulphur, don't they? So maybe that's how she was getting away with it.
I mean, each to their own. I shan't be sniffing any ghosts anytime soon.
Well, if you smell an eggy smell and we're together, I'm always going to blame it on a ghost.
Blame it on the ghost.
This called an end to Harry's investigations into Hellish Nell, with him concluding that Duncan was and I quote, a regurgitator, with an ability to swallow objects and bring them back up at will. That's a talent, isn't it? Because how do you find that out?
Oh, let me just swallow my house keys and see if I can bring them back up.
Ta-da! It's like the magic trick nobody ever wants to see anybody ever do.
Maybe that was her party trick. Maybe that was the thing that got people gassing about her. It was like, oh yes, oh yeah, Hell's Bells 69 or whatever her name is. She could down a whole bottle of red wine and bring it back up.
I think that was definitely her username on Reddit.
Yeah, Hell's Bells 69.
And if one of you joins us on the Reddit, you better make your name that. So Helen obviously had this ability to swallow objects and to bring them back up at will. This was further supported by a former maid of Helen's, Mary McGinley, who confessed to buying cheesecloth for Duncan and washing the slimy material after séances. He couldn't pay me enough. I'd be straight out of there. Mary's made of stronger stuff than I am. That's for sure.
Give me my P45, I'm out.
But interestingly, Henry Duncan also admitted that the materializations were regurgitated. So things aren't looking great for Helen. But despite claims of fraud, an arrest in Scotland over producing a fake ghost of a child made from a knitted vest, and tests on her ectoplasm showing it was actually cheesecloth, people still flock to see Helen in their hundreds, perhaps for the spectacle alone.
Because they just want to believe.
I think I definitely would be one of those curious people. I'd be queuing up for a ticket, that's for sure.
I mean, at this point, it's Saturday night television without the television.
But fast forward, and we're now in the thick of World War II. And despite the fraudulent claims against Helen, she's still capable of pulling in audiences and captivating them with her work. In November 1941, Helen was busy travelling from town to town on her regular tour circuit. In Portsmouth on the south coast of England, at a small upstairs room of a psychic centre, her agent had secured her an appearance. Yes, Helen is doing so well for herself, she now has an agent.
Well, if it fit them bills.
So, during the war, Portsmouth was heavily bombed due to its status as a major naval base, and many of its civilians perished. The residents of Portsmouth had many family members who were part of the naval forces who left from the town to fight on the seas or under them. And with communications being scarce at best, many clutched at any opportunity to speak with their potentially deceased family members. Helen charged 25 shillings per ticket. That's around £7 in today's money, so not the most expensive ticket I've ever seen.
Oh, quite reasonable, really.
Yeah, she's definitely not Taylor Swift cost.
No surge prices like Oasis.
So it was a small amount of money to attend the séance. And with a packed room, Helen began in the usual way by explaining to the crowd the types of encounter they may expect to experience throughout the evening, and to not be alarmed by any manifestations they may see, as none of them were violent or aggressive. With the Blitz in full swing, all the buildings across Great Britain were required to have blackout blinds installed, with all light being extinguished to avoid enemy planes spotting towns of importance like Portsmouth. All of which, as you can imagine, only added to the mood.
I kind of want to turn the lights off for this.
Yeah,
Like-
do it.
Like I'm in a sexy little boudoir. Right, we're in the séance. I actually look quite beautiful in this lighting. Damn.
Yeah, it's really nice. Helen quickly sunk deep into a trance and expected Albert, her usual spirit guide, to arrive and lead proceedings. So she was surprised when Albert gave way to another ghost who was desperate to be heard.
Oh, cue the stage left, bitch.
A disembodied voice claiming to be Sid, a deckhand from the HMS Barham, a Royal Navy battleship, appeared in full spiritual form. His ghost even wearing an HMS Barham hat. Sid stated to everyone in attendance that the Barham had been sunk and that he and his shipmates had perished as part of a German submarine attack. As you can imagine, there was an eerie hush which descended upon the room, as many people there had relatives who were on the barroom.
Oh my goodness, that has just sent shivers up my spine.
The announcement from Sid was actually a military secret, sworn only to those who needed to know. The relatives of the men who had perished on the barroom had been informed by letter, but were told the news was for their eyes only. So either Sid hadn't been informed of this fact, or being a spirit, he had nothing left to lose by letting the information slip, as you cannot convict a dead man.
Pound to fame the dead.
The news of the barroom was finally revealed to the public 3 months later in January 1942. But by this time, it was hardly a secret to the general public, and particularly those resident in the naval town. With an estimated 861 people who had perished in the attack, all 861 of the deceased's families were notified. And despite being told to keep the secret safe, loose lips sink ships, it was inevitable that it would leak into the public domain sooner or later. A police officer had been attending the séance at the Psychic Centre on the evening of Sid's revelation, and he fed back to the Portsmouth Chief of Police, who made sure Helen received a visit from the boys in blue. She was then watched very closely by the authorities, as they were interested in where her information was coming from and her potential to leak state secrets. But this wasn't the first time this had happened.
But of course.
Before the 1941 event in Portsmouth, Helen, or rather Albert, had spoken about another boat being sunk during a séance in Edinburgh in May of that year. An admiral from the Navy happened to be in the audience, and shocked by the news of a British ship sinking, he thought it was best to check with the authorities as to the provenance of Helen's claim. After listening to the news and not hearing anything reported, he called into the naval switchboard and was assured that no ship had sunk.
What?
In the morning, however, he received a call to say that the HMS Hood had sunk after being attacked by a German battleship, the Bismarck. Now, you have to admit, that's pretty spooky.
Right, I'm out of seance mode.
Yep, back in the room.
Damn, Freddy foreshadow right there. Look, I know some people can predict things, like the Kaiser Chiefs can predict riots, but I had a feeling you'd like that one.
That was good.
But to predict during a wartime that a ship was going to go down and yelling timber like that, damn. That's no coinky-dink. I think that was a setup. That was a sting.
Do you think? Or do you think she really just has got the gift?
I want to believe the best in people, so yes, I'm going to say she's got the gift, but I feel like somebody in that room went, we're on to her. It's an inside job.
Helen was being closely watched by the authorities, and in a paranoid and tense Britain under the threat of German invasion at any moment, she was cause for concern. If Helen had leaked any military plans that were leading up to the upcoming planned D-Day landings, she could have threatened national security and given the enemy the upper hand. Helen was allowed to keep practicing her mediumship up until 1944, when she was arrested at a staged séance in Portsmouth by 2 officers who charged her with vagrancy. Which, I don't know about you, but that kind of sounds a bit like entrapment to me.
All she wants to do is give people a bit of hope and joy back into their lives with their loved ones, and just a little bit of communication. But no, she's got to get carted off to the old Bill.
Helen was then taken to London, where at the Old Bailey, she was put on trial from the 23rd of March till the 3rd of April, alongside 3 other accomplices. Her crime being witchcraft.
What's this? The Salem witch trials? The Pendles? Get a grip.
Well, the Witchcraft Act of 1735 was used to prosecute Helen, as no other act or law fitted her supposed crime. But it was kind of a combined prosecution for fraud as well. So it's all a bit tricky, as basically, in order to find her guilty, They had to pull together a crime she was guilty of, and it kind of didn't really exist. There was not enough evidence to try Helen as a spy, and a theft charge couldn't be issued, as she did deliver what she said she would at her séances. So there had to be some finagling done around the Witchcraft Act to make the crime fit. The defence for Helen at her trial was strong, with 49 witnesses taking to the stand to profess her innocence and credibility as a medium. The witnesses gave compelling accounts of visions of deceased relatives and friends, historical figures, and even long-dead pets.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's nice, isn't it? And I think
Yeah.
even if she is doing something that is a little bit pulling the wool over people's eyes, she is providing a bit of comfort for people. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
No, not at all. Just let them see Sparky once more. Come on.
Oh, not Sparky.
I don't know why that was the first dog thing in my head.
I was going to say guinea pig. Wee, 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 wee. That's my best guinea pig impression for you. This is me behind the curtain.
Nikki Druce, you'll get the credits at the end of the movie. Guinea
Yep.
pig, Nikki Druce. Woman in front row, Nikki Druce. Sound
Yeah.
of the ectoplasm, Nikki Druce burps.
Hire me now. I can do bad accents and burps, not on command, at some point. So, the prosecution only provided 5 witnesses against Helen, and 2 of these were the officers that arrested Helen at the staged séance.
Oh, of course.
Some of the evidence they produced to convince the jury was from the séance where Sid appeared to announce the sinking of the barroom. A hat band was found in Helen's possession, which bore the name HMS Barham upon it. But Helen had not realised that by this point during the war, naval uniforms were being produced at such a rate that hat bands for ships no longer bore the name of the ship, only the HMS mark. So Helen's ectoplasm that she would produce during séances also came into question, but nothing could be proven despite previous experiments on the material proving its less than authentic nature. The court heard how Helen would often suffer nosebleeds during her trances, leading them to believe that she was concealing the cheesecloth ectoplasm internally in her throat or nose, but no other accounts could confirm this. And I find that quite difficult because if you're delivering a séance and you're talking loudly and you've got something stuffed in your nose or your throat, how difficult would that be? Can you imagine doing this podcast having to have a massive piece of fabric in your throat?
I get choked up after a little sip of water, let alone having some eggs shoved up my nose. I'd be like, has anybody got an Uncle Martin in the room? And they were on ship 134 HMS bullshit.
Maybe that's why she speaks like this, because she has to speak so loudly to get round the cheesecloth.
Well, if you think about it, that is one way. Like, the cheesecloth could be up the nose if she's talking like that. Because if I talk like this, I am now actually just projecting, and I'm absolutely fine without using my nose. You can't tell that I'm not using my nose to breathe. See what I mean?
You sound like Todd Cranes.
Auntie Chris, it's me, Todd Chris. Where are you?
Honestly, one of the best pieces of TV history ever. If you don't know what we're talking about, you need to watch the early seasons of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
I've now got to powder my nose because I held my fingers on my nose too much.
So the evidence heard against Helen from the prosecution was compelling yet sparse. And so to help convince the jury further that Helen was genuine, the defence asked her to perform a séance at the court.
The drama, Mick, I just love it.
The offer of a real-life séance was given to the jury, but after several days of trials that were continually interrupted by bombing over London, the extensive examination of many witnesses and endless questioning, the jury declined.
They just want to wrap this up, you know. We don't need to be going, is Auntie Brenda in the house? She was a chef on the HMS Bartholomew.
Yes, you're correct. Instead, they opted to head straight to deliberate on Helen's fate, to save themselves some time and to bring this bloody trial to a close, because it's been going on for way too long. After a short deliberation, the jury announced their decision. Helen was found guilty of performing fraudulent witchcraft and sentenced to 9 months in Holloway prison. As Helen's case was a national sensation at the time, even the Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, chimed in with his thoughts on the trial. In a memo to Home Secretary Herbert Morrison, he referred to the case as obsolete tomfoolery and a waste of court resources.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
After her brief stint in Holloway prison, Helen vowed to never practice mediumship again and returned to Scotland from London. Her abstinence from the spirit world didn't last for long, though, and she was soon practicing again, but not touring as she used to, instead opting to carry out séances closer to home. In 1956, Helen was again raided by the police at a séance and was disturbed while she was in a deep trance. Later, she complained of feeling unwell, and sadly, later that evening, she passed away. She was 59 years old.
I mean, that's no age, is it?
No, it really isn't. Her followers said her cause of death was due to being awoken whilst communing with the spirits, so they'd kept her in their world instead of returning her to this one. Or maybe it was the threat of another stint behind bars that caused poor Helen to shuffle off this mortal coil. Helen is called the last witch of Britain and is still quoted by many as being the last person tried for witchcraft in the UK. But she wasn't. There was one more trial before the repeal of the Act. In May 1944, Jane York, a 72-year-old woman who lived in Forest Gate in the East End of London, was a practicing medium for many years. Jane took as much advantage of the grieving war widows as Helen did, but her specific speciality was private readings.
Well, of course, what happens behind closed doors stays behind closed doors.
Jane would contact the other side through various different spirit guides, her usual helper being a Zulu who would impress people with his loud war cry.
I dread to think what that sounds like.
Me too. Her other spirit guides included celebrity appearances from the author Arthur Conan Doyle, the man who created Sherlock Holmes, and also you, Queen Victoria.
I was like, me? The mediocre Queen of Essex? Oh, Queen Vicky, of course. But of course.
Queen Victoria actually loved a bit of spiritualism, and so it doesn't surprise me that she would pop by from time to time. I feel like she probably would.
Do you know what else she loved? Cocaine.
Big fan of cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she liked speed as well, didn't she?
Yeah, and then she'd counteract it with a bit of cannabis.
Did she?
Yeah.
Ah.
Hey.
Jane would communicate using a trance-like state and would deliver wildly inaccurate foretellings from the spirits, and this was set to be her undoing. After several complaints were made against Jane and her frequently incorrect readings, she was, much like Helen, raided by the police after a staged reading. Jane was arrested and charged for performing fraudulent witchcraft and brought before the Old Bailey, the same place that Helen was tried. Jane didn't really see the harm in offering people a bit of hope during such a tense time in Britain and saw offering séances and readings multiple times a day and evening as a way to bring in money to keep her going in her old age. Instead of being imprisoned, Jane was fined £5 for her crime and told to be on her best behaviour for the foreseeable future, or else she would soon find herself locked behind bars. But surely there had to be an end to this, and so to cope with the increasing numbers of mediums and the fraud being carried out by those that did not have the gift, the Fraudulent Medium Act was brought in 1951, which would see an end to the convictions of witchcraft in Britain forever. And that was the story of Helen Duncan, the almost last witch of the United Kingdom.
Well, I'm coming for her crown because I am going to be the next witch of the United Kingdom.
Going to be the supreme.
Nobody's going to take me down.
Yeah.
Oh, Helen.
I know. It's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because I kind of see the police's point that you can't just make ghosts out of egg boxes and vests and fling
And
them
shove 'em
around
up
the
your
room.
nightie.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of see their point, but also as well, it's a tricky old time. It was tough for everybody. And a little bit of hope, even if it is disguised by somebody shoving cheesecloth up their nose. I don't think
Well,
it's
there was no
necessarily-
Amazon Prime, was there?
Exactly.
Bless her. But no, it was quite the journey to go on. God bless our Helen. And the fact that she got stuck in the spiritual realm and couldn't come back to the mortal. It's very sad.
Yeah, it is very sad. And I do feel really sorry for her husband as well, because I think she had some kind of gift when she was growing up. And I feel like children can tap into these things easily. And I think she got a lot of attention for it. And then that was her thing. So particularly with her nickname that she was given of Hellish Nell, I feel like...
Hell's Bells 69.
Yeah, I feel like she took it on and that just became her life. And then I wonder if when it came to... the turn of spiritualism, and there were other people that were doing these wild, crazy seances. There's reports of some of them from spiritualism times of a guy flying around the room. So I can understand that if you've got to compete and keep up with it, actually just having a few people come through from the spirit realm that you can talk to without these pyrotechnics and things going
Literally.
off.
Cheese up your nose.
Yeah, then I can see that she might have had to escalate things. So, yeah, I do feel sorry for her. I definitely do. Coming up next time on Killers, Cults and Queens.
We'll be exploring a twisted tale from history. Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. That's right. We'll be learning all about the historical tyrant Henry VIII in what may just have been the most grisly period in history to have ever happened. So join us next time to find out how this tragic story unfolds. And tonight, Nikki Druce, we're live! That's from Six the Musical.
Okay. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. That's all for this episode, and we'll be back next Monday with a brand new case.
And we want to hear from you. We'll be discussing your thoughts and theories this Friday on the Spooky Sleepover bonus show. So pop us an email at killerscultsqueens@gmail.com.
Or DM us at Killers Cults Queens on Instagram. Leave us a comment on Spotify or YouTube, or send us a message on Patreon, because we want to know exactly what you think. If you've been affected by any of the themes in this episode, please have a look at the description for lots of helpful resources.
Remember, you can watch our full-length videos on YouTube and join our exclusive community on Patreon at patreon.com/killerscultsqueens for early and ad-free episodes, plus plenty of other shenanigans. We'll see you there.
See you next time, and don't be a killer or join a cult.
Just get some cheesecloth up your nose. Goodbye.
Goodbye.